was a great American. Could possibly be called one of the greatest American heroes of yesterday year. Over 14,000 books were written about Abraham Lincoln. And it tells in many of his books, and especially the book Lincoln's Melancholy, it tells about Lincoln's suffering and his bouts of depression and the weight of a wartime president. It tells about that. And it says how he turned to God during these times to help him and to help him to mold him and to make him that the man that we admire so deeply today and we honor. A revealing glimpse into Lincoln's spiritual life came in the summer of 1863 when he was president, when the country was mired in a civil war. And Lincoln faced all the fires burning around him. And in early July, costly military victories at Vicksburg, Mississippi, and at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, all opened an opportunity that Lincoln just thought it was all too much. Amidst all this pressure, can you imagine the pressure of being the President of the United States, even in peaceful times? But can you imagine being the President of the United States during wartime, during tension times? Can you imagine? But it's reported by General James Russell that Lincoln, during this time, was found in the corner on his knees, praying. And at one time, he got up and just said, "I've left it all. I've left it in God's hands." And he got up different than when he went down. And then another incident in this book, talking about Lincoln. The dressmaker for his wife was fitting the First Lady for her dress, Mary Lincoln's dressmaker. And one day she notes that President Lincoln drags himself into the room. And he goes over into a corner and he drops his head. And silently he begins to hide his face. And he starts praying. And it wasn't long till the look on his face changed, and he reached to the side and he picked up a little Bible. And he started reading from God's Word. And again, immediately after reading from God's Word, his countenance changed. And the dressmaker was wondering what he was reading. What did he read that changed him so quickly? And she says, "I have to find out." So she sneaks kind of behind him and she drops something like she dropped something, and she looks over his shoulder and she finds that he's reading in the book of Job. All about suffering. All about a man in pain. And she drew comfort from that. My friends, what we need to learn today, the central theme of our message today is that when we embrace Christ, we embrace suffering. When we embrace Christ, we embrace suffering. Listen to a modern translation of Matthew 16:23 through 25. It comes from the Message translation. It says, "Then Jesus went to work on his disciples, Anyone who intends to come with me has let me lead. You're not in the driver's seat. I am. Don't run from suffering. Embrace it. Don't run from suffering. Embrace it. Follow me and I'll show you how. Self-help is no help at all. Self-sacrifice is the way, my way to finding yourself, your true self. What kind of deal is it to get everything you want but lose yourself? What could you ever trade your soul for? To embrace Christ is to embrace suffering. See, we teach that differently. Or the world sees that differently. We think we accept Christ and we have no more problems. You accept Christ and everything's going to be okay. You accept Christ and you're going to be able to have it all. No. To embrace Christ means you're better prepared to embrace suffering. Oh, the great sufferer of yesterday, Helen Keller. You know her story. She makes several quotes. She says, the world is full of suffering. It's also full of overcoming. It's full of suffering, but it's also full of overcoming. Helen Keller also says, character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, vision cleared, ambition inspired, and success achieved. Only through suffering. My friends, there's several things we need to learn. We need to learn about suffering. We need to first of all realize that it's real. It's real. It's out there. It's all around. It's an epidemic. People are hurting. People are struggling. People are suffering. You don't have to go far to find someone who is really, really suffering. Suffering, my friends, another thing we need to learn, suffering entered our world through Adam's sin and can only be fully understood through the lenses of a fallen world. And then we need to realize that however God is in charge, we need to admit that God is in charge of everything. God is in charge of everything about this universe. But there's more to suffering. There is more to this universe than just suffering and pain. There's a lot more than just suffering and pain. And we need to look beyond that. Philip Yancey, in his book, Soul Survivor, tells the story of a medical doctor by the name of Dr. Paul Brand. Now, Dr. Brand became convinced. He became convinced that suffering and pain were a gift from God. He became convinced that not only was pain and suffering a gift of God, but it was necessary. The pain and suffering was necessary to our world. And he spent the majority of his life trying to heal the victims of leprosy. Now here's what he writes. Brand's career centered on perhaps the most problematic aspect of creation, the existence of pain. And Yancey writes, as he was writing the book, he invited me to consider an alternative world without pain.